We are going to be putting together the sunflower box card. I've got 2 layers already completed, and I'm going to work with 1 layer here that still needs to be inked and put together. So again, I always like to lay my pieces out so that I know where everything's going before I start. And I use color blocks, inks, and these are pretty old. These are a couple of years old, so they're pretty dry. I would not take a new ink pad and directly put it on your project, because you'll wind up with a big glob of color that you don't like. So these, I think these are at least 3 years old, so they're pretty dry. There's not a lot of ink that comes off of them, and that's why I like these, because they are dry. I don't need to use a dauber to use them. And I'm just going to go around the edges of the flower with a light orange. The ink pad's so dry, I have to turn it every once in a while to use the other side. You can see that there's hardly any ink in this. That's okay, because I don't want much. I just want enough to soften the edges, add a little bit of depth. I cut my 2 centers for my sunflower in the same color. Since I did that, I'm going to use black, and I'm just going to hit the edges of the smaller circle to get a distinguishing color contrast there. Okay. This file, I did not cut leaves to put here, but if you're curling your flowers up, you can certainly cut extra leaves to put in the top. I did not. So I'm just going to hit the edges. And it doesn't matter if you go over on the other pieces, because they will be covered by these pieces that we're going to put on. So that's all the inking I'm going to do on those. I mentioned one time before that that I like using the palm of my hand instead of getting out an extra mat. You know, you don't have to buy all these fancy tools. These leaves, I don't want too much curling, so I'm using the barrel of this McGill paper flower tool is sufficient for the curl I want in the leaf. And I'm just going to put glue down the center. And then you just want to take your time, make sure it's lined up, and then I'm going to hit it down the center, because that's where I put my glue. And do that with each leaf. Now I have modified this piece for the file. I changed it just a little. I'll explain that here in just a moment. On these other pieces here, I have a leaf that goes down over the bottom, and that's to add more support for the weight of these. I forgot to merge that before I cut this. So these two pieces I'm just going to glue on here at the bottom, but there will be a leaf behind these on your file if you purchase this one. And that's just, and I'm going to put the glue here, maybe. I don't see, so this isn't really, this one's not going to offer, I don't think, enough support for the weight of this flower head. I've got a silicone mat here. It's to protect my mat from getting glue on it. Okay. And then the flower heads, I like to use just this, I just want the ends curled just the slightest bit. So I'm just going to do that on the palm of my hand. And then I just take it and find one petal to line up to, and then move it back and forth, and then just touch the center. For the flower part with the separate petals, I like to curl down and then just take the end up. I curl it down, curl the end back up. I don't spend too much time curling these. It just needs a little. I'm just going to push these up so I can glue my center on. Don't use a lot of glue. Apply your glue very lightly. It doesn't take much to hold it, and you don't want glue squirting out all over your project. And the same goes for the centers. You just really need enough glue to hold it down. That's going to spread out when I push it, and that is going to be more than enough glue to hold this down. If you are using one of these tips on it, it will start to build up as you use your tip, and I take those off on my thumb. So when I'm done with a project, I have to scrub my thumb from all the excess glue that I've put on there. And now to do this flower the same way I did the other one. I don't make nearly as much of a mess with glue since I switched to these fine tip applicators. And to show you a size comparison, here is the bottle, and this is just a 4-ounce bottle of the glue. And difference in your tips is significant. I just keep that under my desk for refilling as I need it. And there you go. This one's a little bit time consuming because of all of these pieces, but that's going to make a nice little sunflower garden. So, and then here's the box, and I have just lightly inked the edges. I used a light gray. I did the small pieces already. And I'm just gonna hit the edges of this real just, it doesn't look like much when the piece is by itself, but when it's together on top of another white piece, you can really notice the difference. And if you hear background noise, I apologize. I forgot to close my office door and somebody is in the kitchen. So, and then I'm just going to hit the edges of my fence post. Again, if you're using a really, let's say, juicy ink pad, you'll want to use some kind of dauber to apply your ink, because you don't want it on heavy. It's just there to add a little bit of shade. And if you don't think your shading is making a difference, just get yourself a piece of white paper and hold your piece up against it, and you can see that it has shaded the edges of that very lightly, but it has shaded it. So now I'm going to just fold these, because I want to make sure that I don't apply my pieces over the edge. The long pieces are for the front, and then this is for your sentiment on the back, for stamping a sentiment. Okay, so let's go ahead and apply these. You'll see me using my finger a lot to bump a piece up against when I put it down. For me, that helps me. I find a straight edge that I can do that with. Helps me to get it lined up where I want it. Now, the reason I bent that over before I glued it down was because I wanted to make sure I was not gluing on the fold. Glue on the wrong side. I don't think this is the side I inked. Okay. So now I'm just going to glue this piece on. I think the fence would also be cute in brown, and then embossed in a wood pattern. And then I'm going to put my fence together. So this one lays out just a little bit different than some of the others because of the fence post. You will fold. I've made these tabs a little shorter than the fence post. So the front layer you're going to fold forward and glue it to the front the front rail of the fence, and the back one you're going to fold back. The second one you're going to fold back to fold against, and that keeps that hidden so that it doesn't show through your fence. And the back panel actually is going to glue straight onto the back. And so for this piece, I would suggest putting the glue on the fence and no higher than this second rung, and actually just a little bit below it. So I'm going to go ahead and put the back on. I'm going to stand it up to make sure and bend it to make sure I don't go over the folding, because that would mess everything up. There we go. And it doesn't matter which side of your card you choose to start at for gluing your pieces inside. I think I'm going to glue them to the right, to the left. I do know my left from my right sometimes. And I'm just going to lay this down right inside there. I'm going to put glue on the edge, and I'm going to fold that over and catch that with that. Okay, so I've folded it so it's going to go back. I'm going to apply glue here to the end. I'm going to line my card up. I'm going to butt that right up to the edge. And then I'm just going to take this and fold it over and let that glue to that. Push it down, get it glued on there good, and now it's attached. And it's straight. Now the front one I can't lay down because not until after I glue it. And you are lining up the tab on the insert to the bottom of the box for the box card. And remember, the fronts you want to fold forward. If you fold the front back, you'll wind up with your sunflowers right up against the front of the fence. So you want that 1/2 inch gap so that you have so your front sunflowers are not right up against your fence. Okay. So now all my pieces are where I want them. I haven't folded that forward. Fold that back. Now, to get them to glue on the other side, fold your front tab down and have your back tab straight out, because it's folding to the back and this one's folding forward. I'm going to put glue on here and on here. I hope I haven't gone out of frame. I think my mat's moving. fold it back the other way. Make sure you get a good fold. Now add glue to this end. Now there's a little bit of dimension. There's actually a lot of dimension in this card with the curling that I've done, so you just have to kind of work it. And there is the sunflower box card. Thank you for joining me.